everybody. This is Kathy, Crowder's Mountain, North Carolina. I got a project going on. Now, I painted this for a client, and I just loved it, and I thought, I'm going to use this one to paint for you guys too, to show you how I did it. And you know, I talk about updating my how-to videos every once in a while. So this video, I'm going to warn you, is probably going to be long. I may have to break it down in 2 parts, but hopefully I won't. But you know how I ramble sometimes. And I want it to be good instead of just short and sweet and leave out half the things that I wanted to say. So what I'm going to do, we're going to go through this step by step. So we're going to start off with this just piece of MDO. I use MDO, so that's another thing I want to say right up front. I am going to show you what I do, and if I can remember, you know, to say, and you could do this, I'll do that, but mostly what I'm going to show you is just how I do it. I can't speak to ACM and different kinds of paint and different kinds of tape that I'm not familiar with, or I've tried and I don't like. I'm just not even going to talk about that. I'm just going to show you what I do and what I use, and you can take it from there. How's that? But you are going to end up with this Flamingo with her blocks all around her. And we may even do something with these blocks on the side. I'm not sure yet. But if we get that far and maybe stenciling or something, I may show you a little bit of that. But, you know, like I've said before, I'm not gifted in stenciling. That's not my thing. But there are other folks out there who do a great job of it. So anyway, let's get started. Okay, this is going to be part 1, and it is prepping the board. So you want to choose what material you're going to paint on first. And mine is MDO, and it's got resin embedded into this piece of paper. And you can see here, you can see the layers here. And I've showed you this before, but I wanted to show you again. You see these layers here. And between each layer, it's glued together with resin. And it's exterior resin. So when I bring a piece of wood in from the potting shed, I immediately have to prep it and get it covered up, because this resin and me don't get along. So if your joints are hurting, or if you feel flushed or whatever after you've worked with this before, you think about that for a minute. You may be allergic to it. I can't work with just the resin that you mix up together. I can't work with that at all anymore, and I gave all my stuff away, and I love doing it, but I couldn't do it. And okay, I think it would be much better if I prepped the board first, got that done, then I put the sealer on. But I was going to show you this too. This is a homemade Lazy Susan that I got my husband to make. We ordered the mechanisms off of Amazon and just cut. This is a 1/2 inch board. It's not my good MDO. It's a different kind of plywood. So we just made that, and you can see how old it is. And this one's the same thing, only I put what do you call that? Silicone. I'm sorry. It's silicone, and I put that over it so that it wouldn't scratch my board. Sometimes I put this, it's kind of like gripper paper on it, so the board wouldn't sling around on it. But if I've primed the back of it too, and I made paint on the back of it, I'm always scared that's going to scratch it up. So I put this silicone sheet over it, and it's just a cheap piece of silicone. So I use that too. But a couple of weeks ago, this girl that I know goes to wholesale, and she buys things and resells, and she had these cake spinners. And you know, if you do resin or whatever, or acrylic painting, these things are wonderful. But I got it, and it's plastic, and I'm not teaching classes or anything, so it's just me doing it. So I got 2 of them, and it spins around so much better. You know, it's just more free flowing than the ones that I had. The ones that I had worked fine, but this is just more free flowing, so I kind of like that. I'm trying to make sure I got it in here. Alright. But the first thing you want to do is get you some sandpaper. Now I got these. Wish I knew how to set up an Amazon shop, because I could put all this stuff in there and then you could easily find it. But I just got, there was a pack of 6 of them, and I just got them off of Amazon. And you know, if you got a hand sander or whatever you want to use, that's fine. But first thing I do is go around the edges. Okay, so we got the edges and the front and back sanded. And now, if you just stick your hand over here like this, rub your hand against it, you're going to feel all that grainy stuff. You sure don't want that in your paint. So just take a damp cloth and clean it good until you can't feel that anymore. Okay, now what you want to do is find your best side Now that saw, when you get it cut, unless you're cutting it yourself, usually that saw is going to eat into it somewhere or another. You're going to have a, like that. I wish that quit doing that. See that? So 100 miles away or 50 miles away or up on the side of a building, you're not going to see that. But if you've got a choice, you don't want that on the front. Make sure I got that good and clean. So you see, I don't have, got a little place right there, but that won't matter. And then a little nick right here. But when we get through painting it, you won't see that. Trying to see which side I like best. Yeah, I still think I like this side the best. I have got this back from the lumber place and the what you call them lifts, fork lifts. I dug into the back of it and made a real bad place. So those I usually just paint for y'all and keep them down here. I don't ever show you the back of them. But you know, you don't really want to gift that to somebody if it's got a bad place. So anyway, that's what you do first. And now we need to prime it. But we have to wait for this to dry. Both sides dry before we can prime it. So I'll be back in a minute. When I lifted this up, I don't know if you can see this or not. I'm trying to leave my camera where it get it in focus. You see these little holes right here? Now I cover that up. Some people cover the whole side with caulk, and I usually don't. I usually just cover in these holes because I don't want water seeping in there. So I use Dynaflex Ultra. It's DAP, Dynaflex Ultra. It's for windows, doors, siding, and trim. And it's paintable. So make sure if you get it, it's paintable. And this says Advanced Exterior Sealant. Now, this is the kind I use. It's lifetime mold, mildew, and algae resistant, 1 hour paint, and rain ready. So after an hour, I can put my sealer on it. My primer. This is the sealer. Remember those little cracks right there? I'm just putting a little bit of this. I told you the other day or a while ago, it's the window, door, side, and trim. Mildew resistant, waterproof, exterior. So I'm just putting just a dab in those holes right there and just taking my finger and making it smooth. Now that's just what I do. I don't go all the way around with the sealer. I just go all the way around my board and make sure I don't have any holes. Because there's one. Can you see that one? You could just put that on your finger if you wanted to. But now make sure this is paintable, whatever you use. Just make sure it's paintable down. And that should dry, let's see, what does it say? 1 hour. Paint and rain ready. So I'm going to wait an hour and then I'll be back to put the keels on. Okay. Our sealer on the edges is dry. And now it's time to put our primer on. And I use QUILT 3 Premium. And it's interior and exterior primer. So it's a sealer inside and a stain blocker as well. So it's heavy duty, and that's why I like it. It's got all this other stuff in it too, like mildew resistant finish. I like that because you don't ever know what kind of environment the barn quilt's going to be in. You know, if it's in a shady area that gets a lot of rain, there could be some mildew issues if you don't have something good on top of that quilt inside and out, like as your base and on top of the paint. And now what I do is I use, can you see that? Without the light, there we go. I use, it's called Flocked Foam, and it's cabinets and furniture and doors, and it's for all paints, enamels, urethanes, and varnishes. So it really, I really like, this is my favorite one. It's the one that I found. There you go. This is the best one that I found, and this is what I use. So I've got one here, and I always keep a spare in case this one does get clogged up on me. And see, I've used it to death, but it's still going strong, and I'm still going to use it. So we've got our surface clean, and it's all ready. So we're going to put the first coat on it. Now, I don't know if you, I put my roller in a plastic bag, and that's what I keep it in. And then I've got my keels poured into this little tray, like that tray that you saw, and I put it in a plastic bag and seal it up. And then I've got a plastic tub that I keep that in. So y'all probably noticed if you saw other videos of mine, I'm in another location trying to find the best spot down here in the basement to paint from, and that you guys can see. There's no shadows and that kind of thing. So I'm trying, y'all. Trying to keep my head out of the way. So when you see me getting paint all over this counter, it's all right. This is a salvage counter. It came out of a house that a friend of ours, well, I call him my son, but he's not really my son, but I claim him. He remodels houses, and this big island came out of a kitchen, and he gave it to me so that I could use it down here, and I really like it. But it's the lighting that and the angle of the camera that always gets me. When I'm trying to paint here. Notice I'm trying to hurry and get these corners. I went around the edges, and I don't want the edges right here to start drying on me. Oops. I may have to pour some more out of my barrel, my gallon out of my barrel. If I had a barrel of keels, I'd be rich, wouldn't I? The stuff is so high. But anyway, started to say I might have to pour some more out of my gallon can over here. I'm getting a little bit toward the bottom. I'm not going to worry too much if you see the wood through here, because I'm coming back for a second coat. And I'll see you in just a minute. Okay, that second coat is good and dry. Now we're going to flip it over. We're going to put one coat on the back of the primer. And when this gets dry, I'll show you what I do to keep the back from getting all messy while you're painting your barn quilt. Okay, so we've got our coat of Kills on the back, and it's good and dry. Now I'm going to show you how I keep the back side clean while I paint the actual barn quilt on the front. So I just get, this is Scotch tape, is 1.5 inch wide, and all I'm doing is going around the edges. And you know, when you're painting, let me get a razor. You know, when you're painting and you kind of hold on to the underneath it when you're turning it, and if you got paint on your hands, it's going to get on the back. And some of you may not paint that way, but if you're just laying it down flat, but when you go to paint the edges, and you know, like, or if you got a border that you're painting, sometimes it gets on your hands and it'll sit on the back of this. So this keeps it good and clean. Plus, one other reason that I like doing this, I'm trying to make sure I got all that off. One other reason I like doing it this way, let me show you. Let me get these edges. All right, now. All right, so you see we've got it stuck on the back. And when I flip it over, and I'll show you this again toward the end, but when I go to not only paint, but when I'm putting the sealer on it, you know how you'll put the sealer around the edges too? Well, it'll drip. And this actually catches all that. Catches all your drips. And when you pull it off, you're just pulling all those drips off too. I usually try to take my finger and go around the edges and catch the drips, but sometime I don't. And it'll, y'all probably experienced that too before. And it's no big deal if it's on the back of the quilt, but this is good especially if you're painting both sides, because you could have a real clean surface to start with on your flip side of the quilt. Alright, that's enough talking about that. Let's move on. Okay, that was the end of part 1. We'll move on to part 2. Now, I probably did not say this in the beginning of the video, but I always say if it gets too long, I'll cut it into different videos. Well, that's what happened. When I went to edit all of this, it was about 4 hours long. Y'all not going to sit through all that. I know you're not. So this was part 1. Now I know I'm going to have part 2 and 3. And maybe even a part 4. So I'll upload them one right after the other. So if you're watching part 1, part 2 is available as well. And if I can figure out how to link them, I will, but I probably won't. So just look for part 2. It's on my playlist. All right, let's just get on with part 2 then. Thank you for joining me for this video, and I hope you'll come back for part 2. Bye now.